Welcome back to the People's Basics. We are here with our guest today, Jesse Philippe, who is running for Congress in Florida's 15th district. Jesse's a Marine. He has worked in telecommunications and he is a lawyer, and he has now decided to take the step into running for office. And so we wanted to invite him on to hear why he took that step, hear the top priority agendas that he has in his own campaign, ask him about some of our own, and then hear about who his opponent is in Scott Franklin, who is the current Republican incumbent in Florida's 15th district. So without any further ado, we're going to bring on Jesse Philippe. But before we get into it, make sure that you're subscribed so that you're always notified when we have these new interviews. And please join our link tree below and get to our Discord so that you can join the larger community. With that being said, let's bring on Jesse Philippe. Jesse, welcome to the People's Basics.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great today. It's a pleasure to be able to have you on. So, Jesse, before we get into all of the politics, I have to ask you a little bit about your background. You have definitely been someone who has gone through a journey from serving in the armed forces to going into the telecommunications realm and then becoming a lawyer. I wanted to ask you, this is now the next stage in life. What kind of inspired those transitions along the way in shaping your life of service?
Yeah, so I guess it starts in the mom's womb. I guess when you're in I was raised to talk. I was taught by my mom to always serve people. She was a nurse for 20 years now, and she's always taught me to be a service to my community and give back to my community. So that's kind of one of the first reasons why I decided to go in the Marine Corps. Was because, it was my opportunity to serve my country and to give my all to people who sacrificed for me to be here. As you know, I have an immigrant background, so my mother and my father, they come from Haiti. So for me, being born here and raised here was a great opportunity, but there was offered opportunity because of sacrifices other people made for us. So I was inspired to go in the Marine Corps. Plus, it's really cool to say you're a Marine. And so that was always cool. I did the Marine Corps for about 6 years. Right out of high school, I played football in high school, and I still wanted to contact. So I joined the Marines. I did that for about 6 years. I did a tour of Iraq. That kind of woke my eye. Being in Iraq kind of opened my eyes up, essentially to see that the thing with America is we have a great country because we don't see we see inequalities, but it's not so blatant, unlike there are in other countries. So when I was in Iraq, I was able to see some of the real poor, that's in over there in Iraq. And I see, we used to feed families in the middle of the desert because they didn't have food. So it kind of opened my eyes up to see that, not only do I get to, give to my community, but I get to serve people who don't have much. And that's kind of always opened my heart up to that. When I got back from the Marine Corps, I decided to go back to college. I got my undergrad degree in public policy and administration. But, like every other college student, I was broke. I needed a job. So I went into telecommunication because that was like the safe career. If you got a job in telecommunication, you would, pay for your school. And I did that for a number of years, and I enjoyed it because I got to see so many different walks of life at that job, from the ultra rich to the very poor. I mean, I can just remember a time when I spoke to this woman. She was having issues with her bill, and she was in the process of being disconnected. And for us, we asked her, what can we do to help you? And she stated very clearly. She said that, she's a single mother, single grandmother, a very old age. And she only has $1,400 a month living on Social Security. And that kind of put a light bulb in my head. It's like, man, that is crazy. You're $1,400 to survive for her child and her, grandchild. And that kind of touched me. That was like, I went to school for public policy. So essentially what public policy is, we create policies and present them usually to congressmen or elected officials, and they present it as a bill in the legislature. And so that's what I went to school for. And I'm like, I have some great ideas, especially when I was an undergrad. We had to create these models and different capstone projects. And I had some great ideas on how to fix Social Security. I had some great ideas on how to fix the homeless, because one of the biggest things that was prevalent in the military at the time was homeless veterans.
Mhm.
So I had all these policies that I wanted to create, but I wasn't really at the right place to do it. Telecommunications is not, it's not the government. So, I was like, well, I don't want to go to, run for Congress, as a telecommunication guy. It's like, how can you really relate? So I was like, I have to understand the law. If I'm going to create the law, I have to understand how it works. So with that, I did the crazy thing, went to law school. I did that for about 3 or 4 years. Graduated law school. Now I work at a first property insurance company. And so that's where I'm at right now. I decided to run for Congress simply because it goes back to that original story I told you. And, my eyes were open to see the inequalities from the Marine Corps, from the time I worked at Verizon, dealing with low income individuals. All these things had a touch of my heart, and I believe that I have the policies. I believe that I have the policies that can help this community in particular to push our country forward, and that's kind of the reason why I decided to run. Very
Well,
long-winded answer.
hey, I love hearing the whole story of it, because it really explains that you are trying to be of service, but you kind of want to methodically prepare yourself to actually be able to accomplish that. I would
Yeah.
love to ask you about some of those solutions. So you really brought up three key themes to me, like fixing Social Security, helping our current homeless vets, and overall just fixing inequality. Can you walk me through some of like the top priorities of what do you think we need to do to fix those issues?
So we have to kind of be bold, and we have to understand that some of the things that we are trying to do is going to change, takes a different philosophy and a different way of thinking. The traditional notions that we have in place are great, and it's gotten America to where the successes that we've had. But we're in a new time, we're in a new generation, and the issues that plague our society and our communities now are not issues that plagued in the 1950s when a lot of these legislations were in place.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So our Social Security is one of them. It was in place to incentivize and award people for their hard work they've done in labor. Well, that haven't kept up with inflation. Clearly, there's still seniors now who are well underwater because of this, and we can do something, something like essentially a universal base income, um, which is, a little different from the national, but it's my policy is really geared on how do we fix some of those shortfalls in some of these systems like Social Security and such, and welfare, and and a lot of the social programs. And I believe your universal base income can actually make up for those shortfalls. So that's one of my main issues that I love to talk about, universal basic income. Because a lot of people say that universal basic income, no, it's just giving free money out. And I'm like, no, that you're making up for the inequalities that the system that we have right now created. And so that's kind of what, one of the big issues with me. Student loan, that's another issue that affects, new gens. It's like a lot of people don't understand, like, to go back to college, I think I forgot the studies, but like in the 1960s, going to Harvard was like 20 grand, 30 grand max. You go to Harvard, well, let's just say you're not Harvard. Let's go to a public university. It's going to cost you 50 grand a semester. And I mean, not a semester, a year. And it's like you graduate with $200,000 worth of debt. And the thing they don't tell you is you can't afford a house. You still got to live with your parents because you have $200,000 worth of debt. You can't afford a car because you have so much debt. And what's funny is you can't even abandon the degree because no one's going to hire you without a college degree nowadays. So it's like the system has so many inequalities in it. We have to fix that from the top down. We have to find ways to incentivize colleges to lower tuitions, increase scholarship funds, increase not only scholarship funds, but also increase ways to different incentives to lower the debt for people graduating college. And I believe that that's kind of the two biggest thing that's faced this generation is student loan debt and fixing some of the inequalities that the existing system has in place already.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think those are big priorities. We appreciate them here at the network. I'd love to ask you, in terms of a universal basic income, how do you think that should be structured, in your opinion? Do you have a specific dollar amount? What is your platform for a universal basic income? What would you propose?
So my philosophy for universal basic income is kind of on the national standard of it, similar to what Andrew Yang proposed. There's some slight, deviations. For me, I believe universal basic income should be income based. It should make up for shortfalls in the system. For example, Social Security. I was saying that $1,400 was how much the person I was speaking to when I was in telecommunication was making. That's too low. We have to raise the floor, and and different things like student loans. A college student would help with universal basic income because it gives them extra money and it gives them extra abilities to qualify for credit, qualify for homes, qualify for car loans, and that's kind of the most important things within like the first 5 years of college is trying to establish those things, and universal basic income helps them with that. And I know a lot of people don't like universal basic income, but they were like, "Oh no, you're just giving the money away for free." I'm like, "Wait a minute, what have we been doing this whole past 2 years? What is the stimulus plan? That's a universal basic income. It's in a measured way, but the reality it's the same concept. It's helping to create pretty much it's a government program helping to incentivize people to essentially have money in their pockets, and that's what universal basic income does, and that's why I believe it can help.
Yeah, I think there are some actual benefits to universal basic income that even go beyond what we had experienced with the stimulus. I think there was a lot of popularity there, but I think some of the appeal to a universal basic income is kind of its predictability. In that, it's going to be coming month after month, so you can actually start to kind of process a budgeting mindset rather than saying, when's the government going to give me a handout for this period of time
Yeah.
for support? You have kind of a level of predictability. You also have some level of universality. We've seen this past year a large amount of administration have to go out to get these stimulus checks out the door. Tens of millions of Americans right now are currently waiting on their tax refunds because the IRS has been struggling to process all this administration. These universal programs are much more efficient. And as you said, it's something where you can really make sure that no one really falls through the cracks. A lot of these programs, with all the restrictions, don't end up getting used. One program of note, the TANF program, which was the main structure of welfare reform that we did in the 90s and is the main form of welfare support today, that's mainly cash based for people, is getting low utilization rates. In the 90s, 68% of people who qualified for TANF got onto TANF.
Hmm.
Today, it's only 23%. And it's because there's all these restrictions and under processing of funds to do the admin work for all of these programs. So people are struggling to get on them and they become such a headache that people aren't going through the process of getting them and they're not publicized so people don't know about them well. So a universal basic income really makes sure that we provide a true floor and it prevents, as you said, economic inequality as it's really trying to do some form of redistribution. Markets are great at growing the total pie, but they're not doing a great job right now at making sure it's allocated so people's basic needs are being taken care of. So I'm a big
Exactly.
fan of that. But Jesse, I wanted to ask you. Currently, we're in the middle of Small Business Month here
Yeah.
at the People's Basics, and I wanted to ask you. There's obviously been a lot of small business owners who have struggled in the past year. What do
Mhm.
you think we could be doing short term when you come into 2022 to be able to help the people in the small business community or just, help the economy grow back so that more people feel like they can get their businesses up and running again?
Yeah, so that's a great question. For example, I believe that about small businesses are let's just face it, they're the backbone of the economy. They hire the most employees. They essentially are the small business doesn't do well, America's not doing well. Um, and the reality is the best way to support a small business is to give them employees right now in this current state because there's a lot of people who are looking for a lot of people, into these jobs and they don't have the people. So we need to incentivize people to go back into these jobs. We also need to continue those PPP loans that we provided to small businesses. I mean, it was misused initially, but I believe that President Joe Biden has, reined in some of the regulations into that program and is actually now going to small businesses and minority businesses. You need to continue to do that. I mean, the reality is a lot of the small businesses, they're hurting a lot from big corporations because of ad dollars. I'm not gonna, they have so much competition now, it's not even funny. Like, imagine if there used to be a time, I love history, John, you're gonna realize that. There used to be a time that we had that everyone went to the corner store. That was your local store. Everyone knew who he was. He was a guy on the street, and you knew who he was. And nowadays, everything's Amazon. Everything is Google. Let me search this. And we have to give the small businesses the tools to compete because at the end of the day, what can you really do if Amazon is selling your product for 99 cents and you sell the same product for $5 and people Google it and the first thing they see is Amazon's product? It's not a competitive market. So we have to find regulations to actually address those kind of inequalities, like I said, that are going to be affecting small businesses. Because as we grow and we're moving more to a micro kind of economy, as you can see, where people are staying more at home, and essentially more and more people are using like Uber Eats and like things that incentivizes people to stay at home. Small businesses are going to get hurt and crushed in that kind of economy because they're going to be competing with big name retailers. If you look at the movie business right now, most of the movie theaters chains, they're not going to be able to keep up with all these subscription based movies, so they're going to be shutting down. And you have a lot of restaurants who are going to be able to compete with like the likes of Applebee's because they're like in every corner and they're literally like the first thing on Uber Eats when you open it up. It's like, oh, Applebee's, and the mom, Joe's Pizza that's down the road. He can't keep up because he doesn't have advertising dollars to compete with Applebee's. So as the government, one of the solutions we need to do is to do a case study in terms of what we can effectively inject into the small businesses to make sure they have a level playing field with big corporations, because that is the next, for me, that's going to be the next big crisis that we have, where a lot of these small businesses, a lot of the people who provide jobs in America are going to be left behind by big corporations.
So to clarify, it's sounding like your big concern is that internet businesses, digital businesses, are competing with our more retail businesses and are eliminating that type of industry, and you want to do something to try and preserve retail. Is that a fair assessment? And if so, what are some of those regulations that you think are holding back the retail economy? Do you think it's subsidizing that? And if so, why do you think the retail economy needs to be saved to the point of maybe having that level of subsidization rather than just having the natural trend of moving to the internet-based economy?
Well, because the thing about retail, and not only retail but food service industries, is essentially is they hire most workers. And what happens is when you start to have the competition, for example, I'm just going to use Uber Eats as an example. When you have a corporation deciding to like, hey, most restaurants are owned by big corps, and what most of the big chain restaurants. And what ended up happening is they get together, they combine three of their restaurants together, and be like, all right, order from here. Guess what? They just took three restaurants and made it one. And you're ordering from one location. Guess what? You have three. You're shrinking the workforce. So all those people who had those jobs are essentially out of work because now they decide to go online only, an online platform. When you look at Walmart, and you can go to any neighborhood Walmart, as you can see, when I was growing up, and I'm going to age myself, I was in the 90s, you used to go to Walmart, there used to be 7 cashiers. You go to Walmart now, you see one cashier on 8 different, you see one cashier for 8 different checkouts. and you go out there and then they just
Yeah,
bounce
largely
around.
due to automation. They got the machines there now instead. I
Yeah,
mean, to me, that largely is part of where big businesses don't create jobs.
yeah,
For instance, we had an interview on our program with Lloyd Chapman from the American Small Business League, and he basically surmised what you said, that small businesses are the main driving engine of job creation. I believe he said something to the effect of 97% of new jobs created
correct.
came from small businesses.
Yes,
And the basic reason of why this is in my opinion, it's the automation. It's the idea that if you have the capital to be able to reduce your labor costs, and you are a large business, so you've over time built up more assets to be able to invest into doing things like this compared to a small business that's just trying to get its footing and get all of its licenses and is trying to pay off its physical space and it really hasn't saved up yet. That's the groups that can automate easily.
yeah,
And so I think that is a big driver. And he says that one of the big things we could do is just use the actual Small Business Act that we've already passed and do enforcement on it.
yeah,
Right now, the actual level that the government gives to small businesses when it needs goods and services from the private economy for its functions is 3%. But the Small Business Act requires us to ask for 23% from the government be provided to small businesses. So simply fixing that is one way we can kind of inject funds into businesses, make the government actually want to do business. I think about it a lot because, Joe Biden very recently had this idea of the Buy American initiative because he wanted to incentivize people to buy domestic. And so he had the government be the leader in this and saying, okay, we're going to try and have as the first provider always choose an American company.
yeah,
And we're going to increase the threshold for what's going to be considered an American made product.
yeah,
Well, we can actually do the same. Let's actually fix the classification of what is really considered a small business so we don't get those errors like what happened with the PPP program. And let's incentivize spending back into the small businesses. I think that's a great way we can fix it. But
yeah. I agree.
Jesse, I had one final question that I really wanted to focus on, which is,
Sure.
let's say you are able to beat Scott Franklin in the Florida 15 congressional race. What are you going to be doing on the inside to actually try and affect change? What's your mindset of how strategically you would try to work with Congress to get these points we've been talking about today accomplished?
So one of the things that I was kind of blessed with is I did sales in telecommunication. Actually, I was the number one salesman in the whole entire country at Verizon. And one of the things that I learned and what made me so good at my job is understanding how people buy and how people make the decisions that they make. When you're dealing with congressmen, and I hate to say that's the way the system is, but it is, they only move and they only change their position when essentially the constituents in their district puts their feet to the fire. And for me, you have to be bold. You have to kind of be a type of person that stands for what you believe. And I believe that the way you get people and congressmen to move is to make sure that their constituents understand that this plan is good for them, and if they don't move this direction, then there's a possibility they could lose their race. Because at the end of the day, the Congress that we've been having, and I'm going to be on a soapbox for a little bit, John, it's
Yeah,
been the most ineffective
put yourself
Congress.
in.
Yeah, it's been the most ineffective Congress in the past 60, 70
Yeah.
years. The reality is there's been not one major legislation that's come out of Congress since only once is Obamacare. And the other two has been to save our economy. None of it has been to progress our country forward. We have China, who is beating us in terms of innovation, in terms of our workers. Essentially, we have no work. All our work goes to China. We're essentially losing because our Congress lack of initiative to focus on the American First agenda. Not American First by just bolstering the word American First, but actually investing in our infrastructure, investing in our education system, investing in programs like UBI that really drives the middle class forward. Our Congress has not done that. And when I beat Scott Franklin, I definitely will be coming on with the blowhorn to say it's time for a change. The reality is we are a new generation. We have different ideas. Our founding fathers created America as an experiment of ideas, and has died, and that concept has died. Our Right now our Congress is keeping status quo, and right now I think our generation has woken up. We have four firebreds in Congress right now. We're electing more and more and more of our generation to take over, and that's kind of what my message will be when I get to Congress. I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here to retire here, because that's where our Congress has become, a retirement community. I'm here to spend 4 years to get these agendas passed, to fix our middle class, to push our middle class forward. And it's time to go back and be a first party insurance lawyer. And that's the objective. And that's what I'll be doing.
I like that notion of trying to apply pressure, and I think we are going to see more progress as we do get some level of generational change. Let me ask you, Jesse, in this race, can you tell us a little bit about the district itself and the base that you're trying to build up, and frankly, how you can have the people who are watching here be able to support if they're on board with the message that you're putting out there?
Yeah, so our race is going to be different. So the way my district is set up, it's a district of two. We have one part of it, it's vibrant. If I don't know if you've ever been to Tampa recently, John. Well, we have literally Tampa's changed completely, and we have part of Tampa in our district who is moving very, very fast, and they tend to be more progressive. And then we have some parts of our district, which is Lakeland, who tend to be more traditionalist. But I find that we're kind of in the middle of the road here. Now, we're growing so fast that we don't have the infrastructure. We're growing so fast we don't have the jobs. And we're growing so fast that we don't have the simple small businesses that we need in the community. So our message in our campaign has been focused on how do we push our community forward. And one of our slogans is bring our community back to Congress, is to take those community issues and say, hey, you've been sitting down here for 60 years and our infrastructure has been crumbling for like a long time. If you, our education system, well, which they really can't control, but that's Florida. That's a different story for a different day. It's been lagging behind in the whole state. And we're the third biggest state, and we're like one of the worst when it comes to education. It's time that we have a conversation, how we get some of the community resources that we need, like infrastructure, like Social Security, because you find in my district there's a lot of elderly people, and a lot of them are complaining they don't have basic access to healthcare, and they have basic access to Social Security, and those are the two biggest things that I want to pass when I get to Congress, and I think we will pass it, because I think the conversation is moving towards that direction with some progressive ideas. I say all that to say that if you agree with that message, if you agree that it's time for us to bring a new generation of leadership into Congress, it's time for us to invest in our education system, it's time to invest in our infrastructure, then you can vote for Jesse Philippe. How do you vote? You may not be in my district, but you can go to my website, JESSEPHILIPPE.com. There you can donate. There you can give us ideas. We always looking for new ideas. I mean, I think our campaign, we ran last time, we got 14,000 votes, and we were all spent almost $1 million to $10,000, and we got like a third of the vote. And the reason why I believe we were so successful was because we had a plan for everything. Every single agenda that we had was on our website. So we love ideas. We want more ideas. We want more plans. And we also need donations, obviously, because we have to get the message out. But that's how you can help us. You can go to jessephilippe.com and donate.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time with us, Jesse, and we will have that link for everyone in the description section down below for those who want to support the cause. And we appreciate you being so forthright in accepting people's ideas, because at the end of the day, isn't that what representation is supposed to be? It's not just you dictating your ideas. You're supposed to be listening to the people. So we appreciate that mindset, Jesse. And so do you have any final thoughts you want to share with the People's Basics audience as we close out today?
No, John, thanks for this platform. Thanks for giving an opportunity to speak today. Being a progressive candidate, it's always hard because a lot of people like status quo. But I really, truly believe that our generation is going to change this country forward. We're going to move it forward. And no matter what or how many people are trying to stop us with their old school agenda, we have the majority. So thanks.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. We just got to get more of our generation involved, and we're going to start seeing much more progress. So, best of luck to you, Jesse, and thank you so much for taking the time here at the People's Basics.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Okay, everyone. So that was Jesse Philippe. We are very thankful for him coming on the program as a reminder, 15th district. And so we, as I said, have the details down in the description section down below for you to get involved in contributing to his campaign if you believe he is a candidate for you. And as well, we're going to have in the description section down below the links to our link tree. All the ways for you to get involved in the community are in there. We want you to join our Discord community. That's how we organize as a community. And so we want you to get part of it. We also want you to come and join and come onto these episodes. We want to hear from you, the members of the community. What are the top priorities that are on your mind? And we want to hear what questions do you got for us? We want to have this back and forth with you all and have this movement grow. So please do get involved. So that'll do it for us here at the People's Basics. We hope you enjoyed today's episode with Jesse Philippe. We hope you again will consider supporting him. And as always, my universal people, we hope you stay classy out there.